How you doing? My name is Steve Reagan with CSO Online. We're out here at RSA, once again in the beautiful city of San Francisco. I'm with Ryan from White Hat, Matt from Rook Security, and we're going to talk about ransomware. We'll be right back. So, ransomware is a thing that's been around for a while now. It's one of those problems that's just not going away anytime soon. Have either of you noticed any recent trends or upticks coming up in the realm of ransomware lately? What have you been seeing during your day jobs?
So, I mean, day to day, we're fighting ransomware in our SOC. I definitely would say it's been on the rise over the last year, and it all falls down to the one user in that company that's clicking emails, pulling down that malware. And then it just grows into a larger incident when those things spread on the network.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, ransomware, it's becoming more and more popular just because of how easy it is. And nowadays, you don't even have to have ransomware actually installed on any machines. You can just threaten to have ransomware. You can say, hey, I got ransomware in machine, pay me. You could never have breached their system at all. And the threat of just being breached and scared might lead you to pay the ransom.
That's crazy. So, with the threat of ransomware and the way things have been shaping, have you noticed any trends with payments? Are people paying less or paying more now? Because the real question is, when you get infected, should you pay or should you not pay? What do you think?
I think it really depends on the person or whether it's a company versus an individual. We have seen, I feel, a larger uptick in companies paying the ransom because the data that gets encrypted is sensitive. We saw that in Indiana with Madison County. They ended up paying the ransom to get the data back just because they didn't have backups.
Yep. What about you?
Yeah, and the companies are the ones that have that have the most to lose, right? And the individual, if they brick their phone or something like that, oh man, that sucks. They're gonna have to get a new phone or something. But the companies have a lot of money, and backups are always the solution, right? Everybody's like, oh, you need a backup, you need a backup, you need a backup. Well, if you store that backup off-site, to reinstall that backup is going to take you days. How much money are you going to lose to those days? So the question in any company is, how much money is the ransom? How much money am I going to lose? Which one's the cheaper choice?
Yeah. Actually, I talked to a CISO out here at the show earlier this week, and they had a ransomware problem. And they had backups. They had tested backups. The backups would have fixed their problem immediately, except for one thing. One of the machines that was compromised with ransomware was an executive's machine that had 2 brand new files that were not yet backed up. So they had a decision to make. How valuable are these files? Do we risk losing them and the data that's in them? Or do we pay the ransom, which is relatively cheap, by the way, it was only like $600. Do we pay to get it back? Well, the decision was ultimately made, let's pay the money and get it back. The problem they ran into, though, which was interesting, they didn't know how to get Bitcoin. And in Madison County, we were talking about this earlier, in Madison County, they used a third party to obtain the Bitcoin to actually come out and get it. When you hear from customers or people who have reached out to you at your respective jobs, how hard is it to find Bitcoin for them?
We usually advise not to pay. In my opinion, we've gotten into that cycle where ransomware, as it is profitable to the cybercrime, they're going to keep doing it, and we're going to keep seeing it, and we're going to, for years and years. It's spam, right? Yep. The new spam. So we would advise not to do it, but if our clients were wanting to pursue that route, and we have had customers do that, we've helped them walk them through that process.
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy for some companies to get Bitcoins. It's a process that they're not used to, especially in big companies. They deal with real money and have no idea what Bitcoins are sometimes. So they say, hey, give me some Bitcoins, and they go, whoa, what do I do? How do I get that? And in the time it takes them to get the Bitcoin, they're losing out money because all their stuff is locked. So it's a real problem for some companies just to get it.
I think the interesting aspect was with a lot of criminals when it came down to obtaining Bitcoin, most people, their victims, the earlier victims, had no idea. So they started giving you instructions on where to go and what to do. And nobody's ever done research on it, but I've often wondered, some of these laundering points where you go to exchange your your cash for Bitcoin. What if the criminals are running those too? And so when you pay that like 2 or 3% commission to run up a charge, they're pocketing that along with the ransom you're about to pay them. I think that would be a really sick twist. Yeah, that would be a sick twist on the scam itself.
That'd be a good double profit right there.
So just fleshing out the ransomware thing, what kind of, have you seen any like new variants or new variables coming out that are striking or changing anything, or is it still pretty much generic, encrypt everything and hope you pay me?
Yeah, for the most part, I think they're just reusing the ones that are working. The one that had interested me a little bit ago was now there's companies out there doing like ransomware as a service, where I think it was csin was the variant, where you can actually customize how you want the ransomware to work. So I thought that was a pretty interesting model, and we're probably going to see others follow suit or new types, shortly.
Yeah, I mean, I think the traditional ransomware of I'm going to lock your computer and you're going to pay me to do it, that's going to continue. I think the new kind of ransomware of saying, if you don't pay me, I'm going to release all your private information and all your technical documents or whatever it is, I think that's going to be on the rise, because again, you don't have to prove that. You never have to, if they pay you, you have no idea if they had your access or not. So it's going to be a great avenue for criminals that don't even want to have to breach things to say, pay me some money, you're going to take a guess at whether I'm bluffing or not, and you're probably going to pay it.
Psychological wear.
It really is. Yeah, it really is.
Because I mean, it's pure fear driven.
It is.
Everybody knows what ransomware is doing. Yeah. So now,
for the common consumer, that fear is enough to scare them. They just don't know any better.
Have you seen? I mean, I know White Hat does a lot of research, and you help both of you, so many clients you can't even keep track of. Have you actually seen like psychological type of attacks like that, where they're threatening things that might necessarily have happened yet?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've seen it where somebody threatened to disclose all of their customers' records, usernames, and passwords. The company said, I've got an encrypted database, I think I'm pretty good, but I don't know. It's scary, and the thought of losing millions and millions of dollars and all the PR that's going to be bad for us, I'd rather just pay the $5,000 and be done with it.
Make it go away.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I mean, for a lot of big companies, I guess $5,000 isn't that expensive.
Yeah, it's a drop in the bucket for them.
Yeah, and it's a horrible thing. Like, realistically, you don't ever pay the ransom. All you're doing is rewarding the criminal for their acts. But business-wise, the pain of the blowback that'll come from possible exposure of PII or data, or even just embarrassing private emails. I mean, imagine if the guys that went after Sony, imagine if instead of dropping docs like they did and leaking everything, if they'd have threatened it. Pay us $10,000 this month and we won't leak it right now. Pay us $10,000 this month and we won't leak it right now. And they actually had the goods. So imagine seeing like cherry-picked embarrassing emails delivered to you as proof. How quickly would you ramp up the payment? How long would you let a payment like that go? Like continued extortion?
Yeah, I mean, I always think of Ashley Madison, right? I mean, Ashley Madison's a prime example of something that if they wanted financial gain, they could have milked Ashley Madison for a long time, because all those lawsuits, it could potentially bankrupt them.
Yeah.
So,
well, they changed their name and rebranded.
Yeah,
actually.
That's right.
They came back as something different now.
That's right.
A lot of that was because the stigma associated with the Ashley Madison brand.
Yep.
I mean, you can't deny that there was some serious impact that came from that incident. So you've seen the Mongo database, the ransoms there. And in most of those cases, there were never any backups made. They just deleted the whole database and said, hey, it's held for ransom, pay me. And people were paying and not getting their data back. Early on, ransomware criminals were going after each other for not releasing the data if somebody paid, like the honesty among thieves thing. And then you see this. Do you think that helps or hurts the criminal enterprise?
I think by not delivering the data, it hurts the criminal enterprise, because the objective is to make money. So if they don't follow through on what they say they're going to do, you pay me, I'll give you back what I have, then it's going to fall apart.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. You pay to get that data back.
Yep.
And if people continue to not give that data back, nobody's going to pay it anymore, because there's no incentive at that point. You're done no matter what.
When you're investigating ransomware-based incidents, respectively, What are some of the more common weak points you're seeing? Like, is it still email that's infecting everybody? Are you seeing web-based vectors, or like maybe somebody brought in a trapped USB file or something like that? I mean, is it still all the way through email, or are you seeing any new vectors out there?
Through our SOC, I'd say almost 99% are coming through email. We like to think that it's always the unique way on how someone got into a network via a dropped USB drive or something like that, but a lot of these things aren't even targeted. They're, the people behind the ransomware are just sending out mass emails. They look legit. People are opening attachments or following a link, and then they're getting compromised that way.
Yeah, email is by far, I think, the easiest way for people to do it. I mean, it's just so easy to mass blast somebody and hope that 1 out of the million people that got your email opens it up and is fool enough to click on something. But we have seen other avenues too. The web application actually presents a pretty dangerous route too, because a lot of times the web application, you're interacting directly with databases and things, right? We've seen file uploads, right, where you can upload any file. You can upload an executable, and it gets stored on a database somewhere, and there you go. You just uploaded some malware to the site.
Have you seen any growth on exploit kits targeting with ransomware? I mean, is that still a relatively new business point for some of the ransomware kits, or is it starting to take hold?
I haven't seen it. It's been mainly just the generic ransomware that we've observed.
Yeah, I've seen the same thing. Yeah, it's pretty much the generics.
And there was a post, I can't remember, somebody was testing out, I want to say it was Bleeping Computer, actually, was writing about it. They were testing like new hybrids. Did you guys see the one where you get infected with ransomware, but if you deliver this to 2 people and they end up paying the ransom, then I'll decrypt you for free? Yeah, that was evil type of ransomware. I mean, it was never released. It was like a proof of concept type thing, but the general principle was, I'll infect you, but I'll unencrypt your files for free if you get 2 people to install this and pay the ransom. So if 2 people pay, I'll give you that back.
The pyramid scheme.
Yeah, that's like a horrible pyramid scheme. That's just like completely evil and insane. But yet, I wonder if if that really was released and it was a real thing, would people do it? Would you? I mean, if you imagine a college kid somewhere, and they really just lost everything, their entire life, and in the digital worlds on this computer, and all they got to do is get 2 people to pay the ransom if they got infected. I mean, eventually, you might see a pyramid scheme like that take off, and that would be frightening, absolutely frightening.
Yeah, I mean, I could certainly see it with the younger generation, right? I mean, their whole lives are digital, right? And their devices mean everything to them.
And they don't think of consequences.
They don't think of consequences, and hey, 2 people, what's the harm in that, right? I get my stuff back, and then they'll get their stuff back if they do it.
Yeah, they just want to make sure they're safe, so they wouldn't think. I don't think they'd think twice about it.
The thing that worried me, though, is when I was seeing people discuss that, is they were like, well, if you infect 2 people, you get your files back. And it's no. If you infect 2 people and they pay, you get your files back. But there's no incentive, really, because I say I'm going to give you your files back if you infect 2 people. Maybe I will. Maybe. Otherwise, I'm going to get you to infect more people. And it just keeps going. You have like this evil master overlord making you do the dirty work for them.
Yeah, and I think there's that risk with all of them, right? It's kind of funny that when we have someone attacking us, hoarding our information, and then we have to turn around and trust them when we actually do what they ask to return it to us. It's pretty twisted.
Excellent. Well, guys, thanks a lot for talking to me. I appreciate it.
Great chatting.
Hey, appreciate being
It's
here.
nice
Thank you.
getting to hang out with you. My name's Steve Reagan, again with CSO Online, and we've been out here all week shooting video at the RSA conference, so stay tuned for the rest of the show.